And there's Brandon with the steal. Picks it off, takes it the other direction. Gonna alley-oop! Dalen Brandon over Gillespie finds Jaheed Benet with an exclamation point. Nice job to Barris. Throwing it into Weeks. Weeks trying to take it himself, and he does! Weeks right to the hole. Tavares got his hand on it. Tavares with the steal. The other direction. He finishes it. The first lead for Southern Miss.
Hey, Golden Eagle fans, I'm Southern Miss Stadium announcer Jackson Walker, and you're listening to Nasty Bunch and Beyond.
How's it going, y'all? Welcome in to another episode of Nasty Bunch and Beyond. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am rejoined by my co-host, Drew Johnson. You can find both of us on X at Dalton_Trigg and at Coach Drew 33. You can also find the pod account at Nasty Bunch Pod. This episode of Nasty Bunch and Beyond is brought to you by To The Top Merch. You can visit tothetopmerch.myshopify.com. Use our promo code NastyBunchPod to get 20% off your entire purchase. They have some great stuff over there. Be sure to go check them out. Hats are great quality, and I wear one to every sporting event that I go to on Southern Miss campus. So be sure to, and other places too. I was rocking some of their stuff at Round Rock earlier this season too. So go check them out. This episode is also brought to you by Shantyman Premium Jerky. You can visit shantymanfoods.com and use our promo code SMTTT for 30% off your entire purchase. So it's some great stuff. Look, for those who don't know about Shantyman Foods or Shantyman Premium Jerky, the dill pickle flavor, this is not something you want to sleep on. It is, it's tender. It is something I would have never thought would have been my favorite. I'm a big dill pickle fan, but I never thought to combine it with jerky. But DJ, this stuff is awesome. So people need to go check it out. I'm going to eat some on camera just to show people.
Placement.
I'm probably going to polish off the rest of this bag before the end of my lunch break. So very good stuff. Y'all go check them out. Be sure to use our promo code SMTTT to get 20% off your entire purchase. Also, before we get into talking about some basketball stuff, it is March Madness, DJ. It is March Madness. I want to let everybody know that we are doing a March Madness bracket challenge, and you can get a free sample, a whole sample box from Shantyman Premium Jerky if you enter our bracket challenge and if your bracket ends up being the winner. So if you go on the ESPN tournament app and look up Nasty Bunch and Beyond, it's a public group. You can fill out a bracket, submit it. Ideally, put your name as the name of the bracket or your social media at something where we can identify you if you do win. And you could win a beef jerky sample box. So all that being said, DJ, how you doing, man?
Tired. Very tired. We just got back from the mountains with 2 small children and a 2-month-old, soon to be 3-month-old. And I'm pretty tired. So
I imagine that'll take it out of you. As don't have kids myself, but growing up, as much traveling as my parents did, and me having 3 younger siblings, you could tell it'd take its toll at times. So shout out to you.
It does, man. Like, just Gatlinburg, that's where we were, but Gatlinburg, you walk around everywhere. If you try to drive anywhere, it's a freaking disaster. So you walk around to most places. We went to this place called the Island. I think it's out in Sevierville. And we walked around there, and then we went to Dollywood the last day. And I kid you not, Dalton, I probably walked 10 miles that day. It was so much. And it was opening day, so it was a complete, it was just chaos everywhere. It was chaos. It was packed. It was basically shoulder to shoulder the whole day with baby strollers. And I just want you to think about that for a second. That's a lot. And all the rides, like we had to make sure, I didn't remember anything about Dollywood. I haven't been to Dollywood since I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And so I don't remember anything. I just remembered the whitewater rafting ride, and they had that, but unfortunately the children were too small to ride that, so we didn't get to do that. But we had to make sure every ride was, kid friendly. And the thing about kids, and you will find this out whenever you decide to have them, is whenever they find something they like, they want to do it over and over and over again, and it never ends. And so we did the flying elephants about 4 or 5 times. So, but it was good, man. It was good spending time with family. It was good to, get the kids all together. I had my 2. My in-laws came along. Well, actually, my mother and father-in-law actually had points enough to pay for the hotel itself. So it was actually a pretty cost-efficient trip. But we got to spend some quality time together, and we didn't kill each other. So all in all, it was a very successful trip, and everybody made it back all in one piece. So
last time I was up in it, my family used to always go up to the Pigeon Forge area, Gatlinburg area for Thanksgiving and all that. And it got to, we'd go me and Amy would go like every other year. The last time we did that, which was a couple years ago, it was as crowded as I've ever seen. Like it just going to not even like some of the, big name restaurants. Any restaurant around there, you were waiting probably an hour plus to get in. So it was insanely packed. So I couldn't imagine doing that with small children too. But as far as the walking thing goes, it sounds like you kind of got into a situation like unexpected extra exercise kind of situation like I did when we went to Amy and I did like a northeastern road trip at the end of last year in October. And we went to this place in New Hampshire that's called Artist Bluff. We thought, just from reading about it, or at least I thought, you walk up a little bit. It's not like, everybody's like, oh, it's just an easy hike. It's not that bad. So my dummy self wore boots and work khakis and stuff like that. That was the steepest hike I've ever done. And it was probably like at least 40, 45 minutes going up. It was awesome. It was worth it when you got to the top and saw the view. But yeah, I was sweating through the pants there at the knees. So.
I bet your shins felt great too.
It was a lot better going down than coming up. That's for sure. But
I bet. Well, it's all uphill at in Gatlinburg too, and luckily I did just bring tennis shoes. I wasn't about to deal with boots on that trip. But yeah, man, I really felt it in like my lower shin / upper ankles. Like that's where you really felt it at the end of the day. And but it was fun. There's some good places to eat up there. My favorite place that we went to was probably one of the breakfast joints. It's called the Old Mill Restaurant, and it was pretty freaking good. It was all you could eat biscuits. They bring you out grits and gravy and stuff, and that's like, it's like going to a Mexican restaurant and getting chips and salsa. That's their chips and salsas, biscuits, gravy, and grits. And so, but that was good stuff. Coolest thing I saw, honestly, when it snowed one day there, and that it was pretty cool to see the mountain with snow on it.
Shoot, I thought we were going to get some snow here in seminary, because the other day or yesterday it was literally like an ice storm in the morning.
It was snowing this morning or yesterday morning here.
Got a little mid-March winter weather going on here, so
I hate it.
Hence the hoodie in mid-March.
Yeah, I'm ready for it to be over. I'm so tired of cold weather. Like right now, I've got a hoodie on and flip-flops, and it just doesn't make any damn sense. So,
Well, and look, I wanted to come on here. We'll move into some sports talk here now, but obviously baseball season started. It's been a whirlwind. Like it's so fast paced because you have the midweek games, you have 3-game series on the weekend. We had that 1 week a few weeks ago where there were 2 midweek games, so that was kind of crazy. It's been great. Baseball team's off to a great start. Had a disappointing weekend series at Arkansas State over the weekend, but all things considered, great start. 16-4 out of the gate, number 12 in the nation. Looking to rebound against Nichols tonight in Biloxi. But with all that being said, we never gave basketball a true send-off. We both had a ton of stuff going on, and I've also, while I've got people here, be sure to go to www.si.com/college/Southern Miss. Check out all of our written coverage of all Southern Miss athletics, but mainly baseball, basketball, and football. But we didn't give a proper send-off to the basketball teams, DJ, and the women's team. I think we can both agree that there are definitely brighter days ahead for head coach Missy Bilderback, which this was her first season, and given the some of the injury issues that she had to deal with, and it being a mostly new roster and all that, I thought overall did a pretty good job with that. It obviously didn't end the way that she would have wanted it to, that anybody would have wanted it to, but you can definitely see like how she's starting to kind of build her culture and how she's putting the framework down for what could be going forward. So, I think I speak for both of us when I say there are definitely brighter days ahead for the women's basketball program. It's going to be awesome to see, how she builds this going forward. But overall, I mean, what were your thoughts on how this women's basketball season went, how it ended, and what we could be in store for heading into next season?
Well, I thought it started off great. I mean, big time wins right out the gate. You really saw the Missy Bilderback effect really quick. Then the injuries happened, and they were detrimental injuries too. I mean, she lost her big girl, and from there we just really couldn't recover to the point that we were pre-injury. And whenever she went down, I have to go back and look at her name. I'm drawing a blank. But whenever she went down, we just had issues on the glass. But another one of our problems, I thought, was the turnover issues. There was one game where we gave up 21 points off of turnovers, and we ended up losing the game by 19 points. So, and that's just one of many instances where that happens. So, are the main things that I bet Coach Bilderback is looking for is, number one, depth. I think that one of the biggest improvements we can make on this team just overall is depth down the line, specifically at the point guard position as well as in the post. And unfortunately, those are the two hardest places to find depth. So it's very hard to find good point guards, and it's very hard to find really good post players, at least, that our pocketbooks can afford. Which is something we'll be discussing later on in this pod as well, because you have a very interesting stat for the people.
Yep.
But I have faith in Coach Bilderback.
By the way, not to cut you off, but I'm pretty sure that was Whitney Hart you were talking about.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. It was Hart. But anyway, whenever Hart went down, that's kind of just whenever things started going down in general. And if you go back and you look at, some of Coach Bilderback's best teams at all levels, what did she always have? Always had good post play, always had really good guard play. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you the guard play wasn't good, but I think that the depth had something to do with it. So obviously, coaches always say we're looking to add depth this year in this recruiting class. She'll tell you that too, but I think specifically what we're looking at is depth at the point guard position and depth in the post, and looking to retain some of these kids as well. I know she had some key players graduate. I know Carly Keats graduated. I'm not sure what year Tim's is. I'd have to go back and look. If she has not graduated, do what?
Yeah, she is a graduate.
She's gone too. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we got some major replacements to make. But the good news is Coach has some really good connections throughout the state. Just, during her time coaching at various levels, specifically at the JUCO level. And I'll be very curious to see who she brings in.
Yeah.
But this is my vote of confidence. It takes years to build up a program. Don't give up on her yet. All right, guys, it's coming. You got to keep the faith for a little while longer.
Yeah, and Whitney Hart was just a freshman this year, so that's a pretty good building block, going forward as far as post play is concerned.
Absolutely, build around her and retain her. I think that's the biggest issue in today's game is retaining your talent and bringing them back from year to year. And Whitney Hart showed that she could probably play at a pretty high level. So first things first, retain her, keep her on the roster. Then we'll go from there.
Speaking of roster retention, we'll move on to the men's basketball team, which had a fantastic run in the conference tournament. I talked to Coach Ladner before the tournament happened, and he was really preaching that battle cry that they had, you got to believe. And that team truly believed. Like, if there were any doubts of how much that team believed and how hard they were going to play for the coaching staff and just themselves throughout that tournament, they answered those questions because they won 3 games in 3 consecutive nights to make it to the semifinals. Mm-hmm. And they played number 1 Troy, and despite being down 19 points in the second half of that game, they even battled. They didn't throw in the towel. They battled back, and it was a 4-point game with like 11 seconds left. They were making Troy sweat all the way down to the end. So, a couple of breaks here or there, and you very well could have seen the men's basketball team in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. And guess what? They would have ended up playing a Georgia Southern team that made the run. I think they had won 4 games in 4 nights, and they finally ran out of steam, or 5 games in 5 nights. And they finally, and then they finally ran out of steam in that conference championship game. So you look at that, it's like, man, if they could just gotten past Troy, there's a real good chance that this year's team could have won a conference championship. But given that they were predicted to be 13th in the coaches' preseason polls, and they ended up with the 8th seed in the tournament, despite the injury to Isaac Tavares earlier in the season, and then to make the run that they did, I actually thought it was a pretty successful season. I mean, I think the team surpassed expectations for sure. And then I think there's really some good stuff for Coach Ladner and his staff and this roster to build on going to next year. But the biggest question, and it brings me back to what you were talking about with roster retention for the women's side, it's going to be even more emphasized for the men this offseason because
I agree.
Because you got Tyleek Weeks and you got Isaac Tavares, both juniors this year. They'll be seniors next year. If you can somehow, and it's not going to be easy. I mean, I'm sure both of those guys are going to get some pretty interesting offers, but if you can convince both of those guys to come back for their senior year, I think that Southern Miss basketball team could potentially be one of the favorites going into the year to win the Sun Belt, just based on how they finished out this year. And they would have been a much higher seed in this year's tournament had Tavares not basically broken his wrist back in December and missed a couple months of action. So that's huge. And, I don't know how it's going to work because you never know what offers are going to, be flying these kids' way. And you obviously can't blame kids for taking offers they can't refuse. But if the basketball program, if the university can scratch up enough money to at least get kind of close to where you cannot, it's one thing to offer, like Coach Ladner has been talking about, like when is there going to be the next Brett Favre at Southern Miss, legacy and stuff. That's one thing. And I mean, that does play a factor into it, but you have to have the money at least get to a respectable point, at least get close to what other teams are offering. So it doesn't have to be exact, but you got to get it to a point where it's like, look, we can still pay you a little bit right here. That we think this is reasonable, but also you're getting to stay in a spot that you're familiar with, and you can build on something that you've already worked really hard to build up this past season. So we'll see if it works. I'm interested to see how they make it work, because as I was talking to you before we hopped on here, they came out with the numbers for this past season, like the overall operating budgets for all the D1 teams. And Southern Miss basketball program has the second lowest overall operating budget out of all Sun Belt teams. Only Georgia Southern has a lower overall operating budget. So
Georgia Southern or Old Dominion?
It
doesn't really matter.
It was Old Dominion. You're right. You're correct. Yeah, it was Old Dominion. But yeah, Old Dominion has the lowest of the Sun Belt teams, which I believe was around like 1.9 million, and then ours was like 2.4 million or somewhere around there. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, I get that there's some within the fan base who get kind of restless when talking about the basketball program and, specifically Coach Ladner and his tenure and stuff like that. And look, I understand people, wanting to win and to win big every single year. But then you also have to look at stuff like that and realize that, year in and year out, you're asking a guy to do more with less in a time where money has become so much more prevalent than it used to be.
It's the main thing.
It's
the main thing.
Yeah. So,
guys, in this NIL era, it is, number one, it's very difficult to retain a roster, because let's say, you have role players that exceed expectations. Well, guess what they're going to want? More money, even more so. So let's say you have star players that emerge, like Tyler Weeks did this year. I think that, he's probably the best player in the Sun Belt Conference. Let's be honest. Just based off of individual performances, he's in for a massive payday. And guess what he's going to probably want? More money, as he should in this new day and age. And the reality is, you can only hold a coach to the standard that is equivalent to the amount of money that is in his pocketbook, as far as NIL is concerned. Because at the end of the day, it's great that coaches are charismatic or whatever and can recruit people, but your ability to recruit in this day and age is directly linked to how much money you are able to offer. And your ability to recruit is irrelevant. Like, your ability to talk to people is irrelevant. To convince people is irrelevant, because unless you're able to offer something comparable that the other guys are offering. So, I see all this hate on social media, specifically Twitter's people actually talking crazy to Coach Ladner, like straight up, like tagging him and stuff. And it's these same people that have no idea how NIL works and what it actually means now. And the sad reality is bigger schools can just come in and poach your best players. And I think that's what's probably going to happen with Tyler Weeks. I don't want it to, but I think that's probably what's going to happen with Tyler Weeks. I actually have a pretty bold prediction, and I've made it to you earlier. It would not surprise me at all, given the fact that he's a New York kid, if Rick Pitino didn't come knocking.
St. John's.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my prediction.
Yeah. I 100% hope you're wrong on that.
Me too.
I could definitely see it happening, because, look, before that final game, in the semifinals where he kind of cooled off a little bit, he was averaging over 30 points per game in the Sun Belt tournament. He could not be stopped. And up until that final game, he wasn't even showing any sign, like 3 games and 3 nights, and he was showing 0 signs of fatigue. He looked just as good on that third win as he did in the first one, if not, a little bit better. And then obviously you could tell where fatigue was kind of playing a factor in that final game because he didn't get to the free throw line nearly as many times as he used to. You know, there's several games where he got to the line double-digit times, and it only happened, I think, twice maybe in that final game. But I agree. I mean, he is a game changer, and you know he's from the New York area, but you know he did go to junior college in Mississippi, and he spent his junior year at Southern Miss. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Obviously, I think, like I said before, I think the whole legacy stuff, people kind of take that the wrong way when it gets mentioned. And I don't blame Coach Ladner for bringing it up, because I do think there's something to be said for, like, say, okay, so Tyleik Weeks, what is more valuable to him? Like, say the money. Now, I get it. If somebody comes and offers him like multi-million dollars, you obviously can't really do anything about that. But say that the money is within like $50,000 or something like that. I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't know exactly what the budget per player or how that stuff works, but let's just say the money is close enough, and your choices are stay at Southern Miss, be a superstar player, compete for a Sun Belt championship as possibly the favorite going into next season, and he'd definitely be the favorite for Sun Belt Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
Or you take the money bump and go to a place like St. John's, for example, and given the talent that's coming in there overall on the roster, maybe you don't have as big of a role there, and you're just, a high quality role player up there. So what do you do? I mean, what's better for your future past your college career? I'm not saying stay at Southern Miss and ignore the money altogether. I'm just saying if you see Southern Miss is making a concerted effort to get you as much as they can, while also giving you this role that the bigger schools can't really give you, to me, I could see value in that. You're not just from like a legacy standpoint, but just, showing you can do more with a bigger role and maybe not having all the depth and the talent that these bigger schools have around you. So, and whether or not he ends up going to the NBA or if he plays overseas after his college career is over, I think that kind of stuff, the role that he's in could help more than, getting a little extra money in the now. That's just my opinion.
So I think that we got to take this on a case-by-case basis. I don't know what his family's economic situation is.
Right. We have no idea.
That is going to be the determinant on that. I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you, let's say St. John's does come a knocking. St. John's is a private university. Therefore, there is no telling how much money they're going to throw at him. Okay. It's kind of like the Duke University thing. If it was a state college, that'd be one thing, because usually there's limitations on that. But St. John's is a private university. They don't have to report anything as far as, how much money they're throwing at people. And I think the berth could be more than $50,000. I think the gap could be more than $50,000. But even just that is tremendous for a kid who grew up in poverty, whose family is still in poverty, and could be life-changing money. So, you got to take these things on a case-by-case basis. As far as, his likability by the NBA is concerned, you would think that playing in such a higher role at Southern Miss would maybe give the scouts more to look at, but they're always looking at what you're playing against. It's all about competition, who you're playing against. Can he do it in the Big East? Which I don't know if the Big East is still considered a P4 conference anymore. By definition, it's not, but it's definitely really good competition. I mean, you do have national champions playing in that conference. Yeah. So there's that. But if Rick Pitino comes and recruits him, what's he telling him? Is he telling him, are you going to come in and be a role player, or does he actually see him as someone who could potentially come in and be a star? But as a coach who has actually been on the other end of recruiting deals, Granted, I've never had to offer NIL money or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was D3. We're not doing that. But anyway, as a coach, whenever you're recruiting these guys, you're not telling them that you're going to hand them the keys right away. I mean, a coach like Pitino is going to tell you can come in and whatever role you earn is the role you earn. But I'm offering you an opportunity to play in the Big East, to play on the biggest stage at Madison Square Garden every night, or every home game rather. And I'm giving you 50 grand more than these other people can offer because, for funsies.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. It's a lot to turn down. It's a lot to turn down for a kid.
And again, just to reiterate too, I mean, this is all hypothetical. I mean, I really hope your St. John's prediction does not come true, but it makes a lot of sense given his roots and given the type of money that a school like that can throw around. But yeah, I just
he's a Pitino guy. Look at the type of guys Pitino likes. Junkyard dogs. That's Tylik Weeks to a T. And he's a New York guy. Pitino's made a concerted effort to bring back New York guys to St. John's. That's what he's building over there. So I hope I'm wrong.
Well,
and
overall,
I hope I start something by putting this out there. But that's my
prediction. Drew Johnson, Coach Drew, puts Tylik Weeks on St. John's radar.
Sorry, guys.
Loses Weeks.
Y'all can send me hate mail if this happens. I'll take it.
In another report, Drew Johnson burned at the stake on Southern Miss's campus.
They come and get me from Caledonia and drag me all the way to Hattiesburg.
Oh man, that's funny. But look, I try to. I don't know. I mean, people listen to stuff and they see stuff and they think, oh, he's just biased toward Coach Ladner because, and I'm really not. I look at things from probably as unbiasedly as I can, when I'm evaluating stuff, and I don't view it as like a Will Hall situation. I view it as like I see, like I've sat in on a couple of his practices. I see what he brings to the table as far as how he's trying to teach these guys, how he talks to them, how he coaches. And the results when he has a healthy roster have kind of, spoken for themselves. Like this year, a team that he didn't have a good what's the word? A team that he didn't have a good grip on wouldn't be playing as hard as they do for him. Mm-hmm. There's something to be said for that. And when you look at what the overall program's operating budget is, and yet he's still been able to go and find guys like Tylik Weeks and Isaac Tavares and Austin Crowley a few years ago, and Felipe Hasse, which we can get into some of that another day, but I think finding a stretch big like that should be vital to this summer's, off-season recruiting and everything, even if you have to look, internationally. And we have some interesting stuff that could be materializing there later on this season. We'll talk about it when that happens, but you're able to go and find.
Baby. You're the pipeline.
the Euro plug. But you if you're able to go and find talented players like that, and these guys are playing hard for you every single game, and then it's like this year where you just have some unfortunate luck where one of your best players is out for 2 months, which affects your tournament seeding, which in turn affects your chances of winning it all because the Sun Belt tournament is stupid. Because
that's another thing.
The way it's set up, you got to win. We would have had to have won 5 games in 5 nights to win that tournament as the 8th seed when there are teams down to the 14 seed. It's stupid. I mean, it needs to be set up like a normal bracket where you play one game again, the seeds are matched up against each other. Maybe you get a day in between and you just roll like that. I hate it so much. But anyway, you look at how things have played out, and it's just really hard for me to jump on. People tell me, "Oh, we need something new." I think Coach Ladner is a good coach. from what I've seen. And I don't care. I mean, I don't care if people disagree with that. That's what I see based on how these guys play. And especially when, the roster is at full strength, you can see the vision of how it should be working. And unfortunately, things just don't work out exactly how you want them to all the time. But I think given, what he has to work with from a financial standpoint, he's done about as good of a job as you could ask. And, people may disagree with that, but that's just how I see it.
My thing is, who do you bring in that does better?
That's the thing. Yeah, I don't people want to look back at Donnie Tyndall and, they want, oh, look, he did it back then. Donnie Tyndall was coaching in a completely different era than what we are in right now. Look at where Donnie Tyndall is at right now. You think he's knocking down any big doors?
No, he ain't doing that great in today's era. Okay.
I mean, it's a completely different era. We can't bring up Donnie. Oh, look what Donnie Tyndall did with not having as much. It's not the same situation, guys. So I know I kind of got on my soapbox there, but I feel like that needs to be said. I feel like a lot of times, and I get it, I'm a fan. There's a lot of times where I look at things completely irrationally, just because I'm being a fan. Like baseball, like there could be a bad call that cost us 3 runs, like in that Sunday game when the inning should have been over, but because of a bad call, it led to 3 runs for Arkansas State, which in reality, we really just shouldn't have had 2 errors and a wild pitch. But in my head, the fan in me is like, oh, well, if he would have called the strike, then that would have never happened. But so I get it. I mean, some of the fan side of me comes out every now and then like that, but I can't get there with the basketball stuff, because basketball is like my first true sports love, and my eyes see what they see. And I think Coach Ladner and his staff have done a great job, especially this past year. And I'm excited to see what they can do going in the next year. I hope they retain both Weeks and Tavares. In reality, I think probably Tavares is more realistic. Bringing him back by himself. I hope it's both. I was listening to Eagle Hour on Super Talk radio the other day, and they were hinting at, Ladner saying that at least from talks he's had with both of those guys, they seem interested. Both of them seem interested in coming back, but you just don't know what other offers are out there for them. So we'll see how it goes. I thought they ended the year very optimistically. I think it points to what could happen next year if they keep something. And there's some interesting guys on the roster past those 2.
Yep.
That are building blocks going into this next year. Obviously, you have to find replacements for Tegra Ize and Deja Benet.
They were both great.
But they were. I mean, that's a lot of big man depth you gotta fill out. But again, this program has shown that they can do that, even if they have to go the overseas route to find somebody. So
hopefully they do, because you and I both know about somebody.
we're not going to promise anything, but we're trying. We're trying to get the Euro Dallas Mavericks connections flowing there to see if we can get some maybe some Slovenian big man talent in Hattiesburg. We'll see how it goes. Nothing is guaranteed, but we're at least trying to lay the foundation there and see where it goes. But guys, look, that's going to do it for another episode of Nasty Bunch and Beyond. Again, be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to go to www.si.com/college/Southern Miss to read all of our written work, and we greatly appreciate it. It really helps us out, especially if you go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That's always great. So, guys, look, y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. I'll be back on here probably maybe tomorrow, maybe even Thursday, to talk some more baseball stuff. So y'all have a great one. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.